questions orales. The honourable member from Wellington Halton Hills.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, not only did the government neglect national security, not only did they cover up things, they continue to skirt responsibility. Yesterday, the Minister of Health said, no high officials involved in the microbiology lab will be held responsible. If there's no one responsible, who within the cabinet will know who is responsible? The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. At the beginning, it's important to say that health agencies are independent, particularly in terms of national security. And it's our government that created a process to make sure that all the information is available. And it's really important for two Canadian citizens who were very well known as scientists, did bad things like this, and there is an investigation underway with the RCMP. And this is very important, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, the Canada-China Committee in 2019 could have done exactly the same job as the ad hoc committee did, and we could have had the documents 3 years ago. The CSIS assessments released yesterday make it clear the PRC is and was actively recruiting top Canadian scientists to plunder Canada's research and intellectual property. The assessments also make clear that the PRC wants to weaponize this civilian research for military purposes against us and our allies. Knowing what we know now, will the government halt all collaboration between the Winnipeg National Microbiology Laboratory and any entities and individuals in the People's Republic of China?
The Honourable Minister for Health.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say that an attack on our national security by foreign nations, be it China or Russia, represents an attack on democracy and represents a direct attack on every member of this House. And that I share his outrage that China or any country would attempt to interfere in our process. The Public Health Agency, which is one of the most respected agencies in the world, hired two Canadian citizens who are eminent and well-known scientists in Canada who lied. It is the Public Health Agency that discovered that. It is the Public Health Agency that fired them, and that's why there's now an RCMP investigation about their actions.
The honourable member from Wellington Halton Hills.
The documents, Mr. Speaker, reveal a shocking disregard for Canada's national security. They reveal a government that is completely asleep at the switch on national security and the machinery of government. They reveal government employees collaborating with Beijing's government and with the biological weapons unit of the People's Liberation Army. Equally shocking are the health minister's comments. He said yesterday there was no evidence of actual breaches at the lab and no sensitive information actually left the country. The documents say otherwise. Does the minister stand by those comments?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, the two Canadian scientists in question were well known for their work in virology and had spent their time working on health treatments for those that were suffering from viruses. Their collaboration, there is absolutely no evidence of the thing that the member opposite is suggesting, and I do not think that it is at all appropriate to suggest that they were involved with weaponization or things of this nature. They have all the documents, they can see all the information. We have waived all the normal considerations, not only of national security, Mr. Speaker, but of employee relationships that normally are kept confidential. It was our government that did that. That's why they have this information.
The honourable member from St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years, this NDP Liberal Prime Minister isn't worth the cost or the cover-up. For 3 years, this Prime Minister covered up a terrifying national security breach at Canada's highest security lab, hiding the fact that the head of special pathogens was actively collaborating with top Beijing military scientists engaged in biodefense and bioterrorism. So, in the face of that, will the Prime Minister accept responsibility for this colossal failure on his watch?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I've answered that question on numerous occasions, but let me address the preposition at the start of that question, where he says the working together with another political party. He doesn't want to do that, and I get that. He's used to making partisan points and not reaching across the aisle and collaborating. But you know what happens when you collaborate, Mr. Speaker, when you work together? You get national pharmacare. You get the ability to say to those that have diabetes that you've got your back and you've got medication. You say to women, we're going to give you real freedom, freedom over your sexuality, freedom over your reproductive rights. That's what happens when you stop focusing on partisan politics and you start focusing on results.
The Honourable Member from St. Albert, Edmonton.
What a disgraceful answer from this minister. The national security culture begins at the top with the Prime Minister. This is a Prime Minister who said that he admires Beijing's basic dictatorship. This is a Prime Minister who, over the past 8 years, has repeatedly ignored Beijing's interference. So, in the face of that, is it any wonder that under this Prime Minister's watch, top Beijing military scientists had unfettered access to some of Canada's most sensitive biological secrets?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, in the first order, that isn't true. What is true is that the Public Health Agency of Canada, which is one of the most respected agencies in the world, that was there for us throughout the pandemic, is entirely responsible for its operations. And the truth is that there were two individuals hired. They were Canadian citizens, eminent scientists, well-known and well-respected across Canada and indeed around the world, who lied to the Public Health Agency of Canada. The Public Health Agency of Canada then took the very responsible action of firing those individuals, turning the matter over to the RCMP, where they currently are under investigation, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, where are they?
The Honourable Member from St. Albert, Edmonton had the opportunity to ask two questions. I'm certain he could speak to his House Leader to ask more questions in the House, but until that time, please, I'd ask him to wait his turn until he has the microphone, until he has the floor. The Honourable Member from Lennox, Addington.
Speaker, evidence speaks otherwise. After 8 years, this Liberal NDP Prime Minister is not worth the cost nor the cover-up. He can't be trusted to keep our people safe. Yesterday, the entire nation was shocked to learn that this government granted two People's Liberation Army assets full access to secret research in a top-secret Canadian lab. This represents the biggest security breach since the Cold War. And this happened under a Prime Minister who famously said he admires China's basic dictatorship. Mr. Speaker, how can Canadians trust a Prime Minister that fails to take national security seriously?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, the representations made by the member are inaccurate, and I would invite people to read the documents, which have been fully redacted. But this is the contrast, Mr. Speaker, between a party that is focused on partisanship and difference. And you know what the member opposite talks about working with another party and what that might accomplish. What about dental care, Mr. Speaker? When we focused on cooperation, we were able to get dental care done for this country. We're able to make sure that 9 million Canadians, 3 million seniors will have access to dental care. They're voting against that. They're against that. Are they against pharmacare? Are they against the other fruits of cooperation that come from...
Colleagues. Again, colleagues, it is very important for us, for those of us who have the ability to speak both languages, it's a clear advantage of being in the House that we don't require the use of the headsets. But for those of us who do require it, it's very difficult for them to hear the questions or the answers if there's too much noise in the House. I ask all members, out of respect to all of their colleagues in each of your respective caucuses, is to please listen respectfully to the answers and to the questions, so that those of us who require the use of earphones can do so.